soon I'm going to get the heads up to say go live. Let's see. Just getting my technical team to sort things out. Looks like it's on. Okay. So here we go. Thank you for those who have joined us, and a very good afternoon, I believe. It's flashing. I'm on. I'm live. Okay, sorry. It just always happens all the time. And from wherever you are, if you're joining into this session now or perhaps later, I just want to wish you a very good afternoon on the eve of the time when the country decides to pick a new leader. But let's just not talk about that. We're not going to talk about politics. We're here to talk about love. We're here to talk about how and what it entails to do partner applications if you are in one. And if you are planning to find a partner, this is not a session for you, because we don't do, I'm not a marriage celebrant is what I wanted to say, because I sometimes get questions about, can you help me find a marriage celebrant? But I can't recommend that. So today we're going to talk about all of those things. So if you have just joined us again right now, I want to just very quickly introduce myself. So my name is Dharmindher Singh. I'm one of the migration agents based here in Canningville, which is in Perth. And I'm with Aussies Group, of course, as you can see the little logo at the side there. So I'm going to talk to you about something I've had numerous presentations on already. And this is on every aspect on partner visas, onshore, offshore, prospective partner application, things of that nature. Now, if you or anyone watching this now or later, if you have a question, those are some of the details that you can already see down there. You've got my registration number, you've got my contact details. You can drop me an email or whichever means that you are able to communicate with me. I'm happy to then address any questions that perhaps doesn't pop up here or separately. I'm happy to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to start talking about essentially the key things that they want to see is, I suppose whenever I'm doing these kind of presentations, I've got to factor in a few things here. So if a client is sitting in front of me, because I'm in my office right now, you can see this is literally where I am. I don't have any fancy background or whatever the case is. I'm actually in my office. So I'll ask my client right in front of me, how long have they known each other? Have they met each other? Have they lived together? Or do they know of each other? And I go into those questions quite deliberately, because I have to establish, do they have a genuine ongoing relationship, which is a common theme that's going to go through in this presentation, because that is precisely what the department wants to look at. Are you in a genuine ongoing relationship? So we'll cover aspects of the financial aspects, the social aspects, your day-to-day, your everyday plans in your future, what we commonly call the 4 pillars. Now, if you can build it upon those things, you kind of got it. I know some of you might immediately think, well, hang on. Sometimes when you just gotten into a relationship, whether it's married or de facto, we'll come into that at the same time, you sometimes don't have all those information. And that's why you are subjected to long processing times, which we'll cover that again at the same time. And you begin to think, how am I going to accelerate? How am I going to fast track my timing in terms of processing time? And all of those questions that are very popular whenever I talk about partner applications. So I'm going to go into those kind of stuff to you. Maybe share a few secrets or tips on how best to position yourself in terms of how you want to get around this. I'm still getting, okay, I'm just getting, sorry, I will keep sort of interrupting myself. That is because I'm looking at a side screen for some internal messages that's coming through. So without further ado, the common thing that you've got to ask yourself is that, are you, or being the sponsor, that is, so if the sponsor is obviously from here, the sponsor first and foremost, obviously, have to be above 18. And then if you are, then you pretty much be rest assured that you are of the legal age that Australia, somewhat allows you to go and get married and whatnot. And so you have this distinction now. Do you go on the basis of 12 months of knowing and living with each other, where we call that or term that as a de facto relationship. And if you don't have the 12 months, I just want to talk about that very quickly. If you don't have the 12 months, even if you have 11 and a half months, and God forbid you are onshore and your visa is running out and you're like, oh, I don't know. I will tell you very carefully to consider your circumstances, because the department are very particular about that. And do you have the 12 months of living together evidence or not? Now, you need to find ingenious ways to get around that situation. But if at the face of it, if you don't, then you're kind of not meeting that requirement, which in some cases, upon application, when the case does come up, 1.5 years later, the case officer looks back and say, well, when you filed and you lodged, you didn't have this and that, the other, so it can become unstuck for you, and that's not going to be a nice thing, because it's a very expensive affair. The department fees is $9,100. Agent fees notwithstanding, we can talk about that separately. But all in all, you think you have a $13,000, $14,000 financial outlay on an application that has just gone silly because you failed to consider a few factors, and that's what we're going to get into today. So onshore applications are deemed as an 820, 801. You notice I mentioned two numbers because there's a temporary stage and then there's a permanent stage. So there's two applications, but it's actually at one go, right? Two applications, meaning at least one application, but two stages. You know what I'm trying to say. Now, when you apply, you will get, depending on where you are, right? If you are here in Australia, that's where you get a bridging visa. Now, if you get a bridging visa, then you are subjected to the 820, presuming whether you're on merit basis or on de facto. Either way, you're going to get an 820 onshore. Popular question most of the time we get is, oh, can we get this thing faster? If you look at the department prescribed processing time, you will notice sometimes they might say 20 months, they might say 2 years, God forbid. By and large, you sometimes have to abide by that. There are things that you can do to speed things up. If your circumstances are such, sometimes there's a child involved, or there's a medical condition, or various kind of things that can come into play. Or your relationship is actually already very strong from the very beginning. Case by case, officers do look at that, and you could get that first stage 820 probably granted within a year. It has happened before. I've had 820 and 801, both stages granted in 8 months. Not even joking, right? So different circumstances, right? So what I'm trying to say to you is that, so you are subjected to that. So going back to the point earlier, so if you apply on the basis of marriage or de facto, is onshore 820, you just wait. Not blindly. You wait, you carry on doing those 4 things I spoke about earlier. You demonstrate that you're financially very sound. You are making decisions together. Most of the time you better be, because that's what marriage life is all about, right? And then you go into the social side of things. What, where, and how? Who knows of your relationship? Your family, inner circle, your friends, your work, whoever, your social profile if you have one. That all comes into play in terms of who and what you as a couple really are. They want to know that. And hence, sometimes why they deliberately somehow put that test of time, 20 months or so, to see how this relationship fares, even on the basis that you've already married. So it doesn't guarantee that just because you're married as opposed to a de facto. So don't kind of put that kind of conclusions together. Now, conversely, if you are in a de facto relationship and I've got a client right now, we've been together for 12 plus years, known each other, on and off relationship as they call it, but can demonstrate, can prove, can vouch for all of those things. Because back then, some of you might remember, you could take photographs and they had a timestamp at the side there, for those who remember that far back, and then this couple actually had that. It's kind of cool. So they use all of that, and to their advantage, when they did that, their first stage was actually granted in 11 months, which was quite surprisingly good. Genuine relationship, everything worked out. So first stage of the application, we're still talking about onshore. The applicant, the sponsor, needs to, obviously have a series of documents and whatnot. What I'm talking about here is that the sponsor obviously needs to be formed here. And if the sponsor is a permanent resident or citizen, that's good enough. And if the sponsor has sponsored someone before, which is what I want to talk about very quickly, there's a little mental notes that I have for myself. If he has sponsored someone and the last sponsorship was made 5 years ago, if you are in that situation, if your sponsor has done that, is what I'm trying to say. But the last sponsorship was 5 years ago. You got to let the 5 years lapse before you're eligible to apply for the next one. Just sort of saying. You're ever only allowed twice as a sponsor to sponsor. So if the first one didn't work out, the second one, fingers crossed, better be. Otherwise, in your third life, you'll be somewhere else having another relationship. So if you understand that much, then you ask yourself, well, what else do I need to do? Obviously, you need your police clearance for both parties from everywhere. Partner who is going to be sponsored. In this case, they've lived in many, many countries. They are subjected to do a police clearance from wherever country they have lived for more than 12 months. I want to spend some time talking about that. Why? Because sometimes they are unable to get a police clearance. So all of these little funny things will determine how long you stay in that particular first stage of application. This is just from experience. Now, if that is not the case, that's not a question to be worried about, then just apply. Don't worry about those kind of funny things. Worry about medicals should you not think that you're going to pass medicals, because that could be a problem for some people at the same time. But if that is not the case, apply, show, do. If you're onshore, you will get a bridging visa, which most people then perhaps resort to. You get it once you're on a bridging visa. When you're onshore, whatever visa that you have obviously carries forward, then you're on a certain period of time. I want to spend some time talking about this. Now, if you are holding a student visa, or if you have a employer-sponsored visa already, and then you decide to do this onshore partner application, super important you understand this. Yes, you get a bridging visa, but you need to abide by your first visa conditions, which is whatever that might be, student, temporary, or work visa. You must see that out until that finishes before this bridging visa then becomes active. You don't get to tell the department and say, hey, by the way, I've already got this, so I want my work rights to kick in. I need my Medicare. I need all of those things to happen. Because you have a prevailing visa, you need to abide by that. Now, if you think you had a few months left of that's fine. Then your bridging visa will be there for 3-4 months or whatever that might be. Then once that visa finishes, then this bridging visa A that you have becomes active. Work rights kick in, you got your Medicare, fine. People are happy most of the time when that happens. Why? Because then they can run their life. Then they can begin to demonstrate that they are in a genuine, ongoing relationship, which is what the department wants to see, which you have 100 attachments to put on both stages. You pick and choose funny, nice, not funny, but you know what I'm saying, very, anecdotal moments of your relationship. You upload, you let the department know. You kind of drip feed the department is what I call it, where they begin to think, oh yeah, okay, this is happening. Why do I say that? Is because a lot of the time when you launch an application, there's a little tricks I'm just going to happy to share with you. I don't know why, I'm just going to share that anyway. You launch an application, it's not as if that, wait. If you don't let them know bits and pieces from via attachments, they're not even going to pick up and know. This is like a little, call it a little alert system that just goes into the system that says, oh, ping, you got mail, for those who remember that far back. Then you go in, you're prompted to check and see. So it's your way of communicating with this particular officer, whoever else this person is, to say, oh, now they've got this, they've got that. It moves things along a little bit faster. It doesn't prompt them to immediately make a decision, but at least your case is moving towards something that you want to. So you are the architect and engineer of that in terms of how you feed this information. It's not like you come to a migration agent, they look, they see, they assess, or you do this form 888, you do this, and you lodge it, and you're like, no. What I do with most of my clients is I'm telling, hey, you guys planning to go somewhere? Oh, yeah, we did. We come back. Oh, by the way, can you update? I said, put it all together in a montage of photographs, if you want to call it. Why? Because we put it all together in one PDF, because you don't want to exhaust your attachments allocation, which is 100 attachments, by just attaching one picture at a time. Little tricks of the trade. Put it together in a PDF, attach it in there, however you want to. Trip down south, you posing at Yellinga Beach with a little, crusty pie in your hand or whatever that you want to do. No problems. Put them all together in one series. Keep attaching. Financially, you bought something. I had a client, true story. And he went to Harvey Norman. Not that I'm promoting Harvey Norman, but that's exactly why I remember this case. They bought a sofa, $1,800. They showed money came from his account, money came from his account. By the way, they have a joint bank account. You know that already. I don't need to go into having joint bank accounts and all that, because that's pretty standard information. So if you have that, they show transaction. So they use that to show and feed the section where it says financial. So they say, oh, look, recent transaction. I'm like, you for real? I'm like, you bring it on. Let the department know, because not everybody suddenly walks into a marble house straight away, right? But not that marble houses are bad, by the way. So if you have that and you can prove things are happening within your relationship, not just the usual stuff like, oh, I go to work, I come back, somebody cooks. Notice I said somebody, like could be anyone, right? They don't want to know all that kind of stuff. They want to know a little bit more interesting stuff, not the juicy stuff. They don't want to know any private stuff, but they just want to know, how's the household functioning? How are your future plans? What is your current situation? Now, if you, depending on whether you're de facto or marriage, like I said, regardless, when you're already onshore, you want to get into the situation that you can be in a position to move to the invitation for the second one, which is the 801. It says, right, everything else is good, you're good to go. I think by operation of the law, if 2 years lapses, God forbid, if nothing happens, you it's not an automatic thing. You kind of write to them and whatnot, and they prompt you, give you a nudge to say, all right, here you go. You're ready for the second stage, and then you just apply for the second stage, and that's when everything else kicks in. That you have a PR, right? PR, but you still wait for a while. Okay, just remember that. Now, if that is the case for you, then that's what you should be doing. Quick recap. Onshore, you remember, partner must not have sponsored someone the last 5 years. You can be the de facto or marriage, depending on what you want to. If you're going to go down the path of marriage, you just don't go and get married, by the way. Like I said, if for some reason, if you're still listening and you just join in, this is about basic information about joining, about applying for a partner application. Now, if you had your visa running out in 1 month, here, you want to go on the basis of marriage because you don't have de facto evidence, then you have to do this notice of intention of marriage, NOIM. You've got to apply, you've got to find a marriage celebrant who, by law, technically speaking, within 28 days, you've got to let that 28 days come through before they can say that, yes, you've done that. If you can kind of try to get around the situation in an ingenious way to see if you can find a marriage celebrant who can do that in a shorter period of time, which usually I don't want to get into the details right now of how that can be done. But in some ways, strange circumstances, if God forbid, if you are, then that's when you would go down. But by and large, just remember you need at least a month to register. Once the marriage is, the notice of intention of marriage is done, your marriage is registered, then you use that. That's what you use to apply for the visa at the same time, because it's proof that you are married. Just remember that particular step. Assuming all that is okay, that's good. If you met the de facto evidence, then you go on the path of de facto. If you met the marriage, then you want to go married, then you go on the path of marriage. No real advantage given in terms of speeding up the process, just in case. Because that's a popular question everybody would ask. Oh, if I'm married, does that make my case stronger? Not at all. I don't think so, right? So it's based on what you demonstrate from all those things that I've just already mentioned, the financial, social, your daily, your future plans as a couple. They want to see all of those kind of stuff. Now, if that's all okay with you, that's fine. But what if you met someone online? Fair game, you had a relationship with them online, obviously, and you decided to get married, but the person is offshore. Common popular question is like, how can I do an application where they can come down here faster, easier, and all of that stuff? Now, obviously, if it's an offshore application, it's a 309 application because they're not onshore and they're not going to get a bridging visa. There's interesting ways of how you can go about that. You could, most people try. The word is try to apply for a visitor visa first. You get it. Happy days. You come down. If you do not have a no further stay condition, within the 3 months period, apply a notice of intention of marriage, which is a 1 month or thereabouts. Happy days. Go down to Kings Park, come down, go to Cottesloe, go to Scarborough, go to Fremantle, have your fish and chips. Launch the application, so to speak. Not in all those places in that order, but those are my preferred places, by the way, in Perth, right? Now, if you do that, you are going to find that she or who the person is will then get a bridging visa if they do not have a no further stay condition on their visitor visa. They are onshore, so they transition into that. They get a bridging visa and they just wait. Visitor visa is for 1 year. Each entry is 3 months at a time. Let that subside. Bridging visa A becomes active for the partner application. Chances are they're not going to get work rights because their last visa, work rights or whatever rights, just carries forward. Then there's a procedure of applying, showing that you need to work, hardships, what we call it. There's various ways you can show all of that. And once that kicks in, you got work rights, you got Medicare, then you live happily ever after, so to speak. What if you apply for a visitor visa and it gets rejected? Or it gets rejected, that's fine. That means you can't come here and do an onshore application. What if you apply and you got the visitor visa and you had a no further stay condition? What does that mean? You can come down, but you cannot launch an application onshore because you have a no further stay 8503 condition. Department loves to confuse you even more with numbers and acronyms and all of that, but that's one of them, which means that you cannot launch an application onshore. However, as I tickle myself here in this scratching mode, there are ways in which you can still get a bridging visa, but that you will have to contact me and I'll tell you how that's going to be done. There's interesting ways you can still get that. That means you can still launch an application, and I'll tell you how that is done separately. Then you come down, but before you come down, we have to launch something. And there's a way that we can do the switcheroo back to getting a bridging visa, which is a very popular thing, by the way. Some people know it, some people don't. I'm happy to just say that much, at least for now. And then that process happens. What if it's a true and true only application that is just an offshore? That means your mind is made up. You've gotten married, meaning you have gone overseas. You've gotten married to the person and you've come back and you're like, hey, I don't want to muck around with this visitor visa. I keep getting refusals. I just want to start the process because the processing time as it is already that long. You apply. You apply, then you don't get a bridging visa, obviously, because it's an offshore application. Then you wait the test of time. Sometimes within a year and a half, you come to, situation where they look at everything else is okay. I want to stress one thing here. It's very difficult, in my opinion, in my experience, to then feed them that element of genuine, ongoing relationship because you're not together. It's so frustrating. I just don't understand why the department doesn't look at this and change some of those requirements. In my opinion, anyway, if I was a minister of immigration, which I'm going to vote tomorrow, let's not go in politics right now. They could allow the financial, the social parts of some elements to show that, you keep sending money, showing that you are dependent on each other. Socially, you keep showing your chat history or your photographs, or maybe you travel overseas because this person can't come here because they've had a visa refusal for 2 years and whatnot. funny situations impede your process to speed up this grant, is what I'm saying. That is not to say that after you've lodged an offshore application, this partner of yours cannot apply again if they get it, this time fingers crossed. They get this visitor visa, then they come down, then you can also show, hey, you see, we've come down and we've got a relationship and things are happening. So you can drip feed this information to the department and fingers crossed, just hope that things are moving along. What if you didn't want to do this offshore, onshore prospect, marriage or de facto visa? Then there's that prospective marriage visa, which is all I was going to talk about. As the word suggests, prospective, because hopefully it's not a mail order sort of a marriage situation. Potentially can. I had a client who came back to me, very interesting. I wish I could mention the country, but I'm not allowed to do that, just in case this person is listening. But it was very interesting. So he met this person, must have met the person is one of the conditions, and known of contact, the proper definition of, and as the word suggests, it's a prospective marriage visa. Once granted, which processing time is quite not very attractive, actually, it can be actually something from 11 to 15 months before they grant that. But when you do get that granted, because you're offshore, remember, prospective, that means then within a certain period of time, 9 months, I don't know why they call it 9 months though, within 9 months, you need to have them marry the person. And the marriage can happen onshore or offshore. So you take a pick. So if that's your cup of tea, based on your circumstances and whatnot, that's another third option in terms of visas that you can consider. Now, having spoken for 26 and a half minutes, don't realize that sometimes when time flies. There may be some questions I don't know. And if there are, I want to just take a quick little breather to think, what are some of the things that just from experience? I don't want you to just listen, look at this, and wondering, what is this all about? Just hearing another migration agent talking. This is not what this is all about. You have at your disposal now to think, hey, I actually have a real particular pressing, pointy question. Here you go. Email me. You mentioned to me that you actually seen this. I'm happy to extend a free 15-minute consultation. And if you're well behaved, which most of you normally are, I'm happy to just tell you, the tricks of the trade, how you're going to go about certain things if you have a pressing question. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not soliciting for anything like that. But I want to tell you one thing though. It is one of not the cheapest visas to do should you want to do this by yourself. And a lot of them think, fine, I gotta go do this. My friend did this. You have your little 2-3 tequila shots, you sit down, you fold your sleeves up, he says, I got this. And God forbid, it's not just lodging an application. It is throughout what, where, and how, what is happening. And I've seen enough. I've been doing this more than 15, 16 years. You've realized some of the funny mistakes that some people make, and it's a non-refundable department fees. Why subject yourself to that is what I'm trying to say. So if you have a burning, pressing question for yourself or on behalf of someone else or whatever, my contact details are there. Feel free to contact me. Throw the questions at me. I'm happy to answer that. Now, I don't know. I'm going to speak to my colleague, Janvi. I think if you're still listening, is there a way I can go and check and see, are we in the Q&A sessions? Is that something that I can talk about? And by the way, once you do get this visa, the next question people normally ask is, if I'm offshore, how do I come down here? Is all on your visa grant, enter by a certain date, and so forth. You've got this visa for 5 years. Come in, spend your time, do your due diligence, get into your PR, and then slowly everybody wants to fast track into applying for the citizenship, which is something we can talk about probably at another time. But at this stage, that's it apparently. So if you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer that. But if not, then we're good to go. So I'm just seeing who joined, who not. It's kind of interesting. I kind of see a lot of people actually doing that. That's the best part of being live, isn't it? So we're good? We're not live anymore? I'm waiting for you to click end live.